What's up, everybody? I hope y'all are having a great day. I'm Anthony. On today's video, we're going to do some more herbal medicine. This time we're talking about wormwood. So stay tuned. That's right, today we're going to be talking about Artemisia absinthium, also known as wormwood. Just like my prior herbal medicine videos, we are going to be hitting four main topics. Number one, what exactly is it? Number two, where do I find it and how do I identify it? Number three, what are the medicinal applications of it? And number four, I'm going to show you some practical applications so you know exactly how to use it. All right, now before I go any further, I got to make sure I mention something extremely important. The United States Food and Drug Administration has classified wormwood as dangerous. Now the reason for that is because if you pay attention when I said the Latin name, you probably heard the word absinthium in there, meaning absinthe, because wormwood is one of the ingredients for the alcohol absinthe. I'm sure a lot of y'all realize that absinthe with wormwood is illegal in the United States, and it's actually legal in quite a few countries. I think France made it illegal like 1915, because wormwood has a chemical called thujone in it, all right? And thujone, if you have too much of it, is toxic, all right? Actually, it's toxic in general, but there are other plants with thujone in it, all right? Oregano and sage have thujone, and you don't see people going crazy about that one, mainly because it's not found in the concentrations and also because it's not put into alcohol, all right? People don't know moderation, so when they drink things like absinthe with wormwood, they get too much of a thujone toxicity built up, and that's when it starts to act like a GABA inhibitor. A GABA inhibitor basically blocks the receptors in your brain, long story short, and all of a sudden you're going to probably suffer from things like hallucinations and convulsions. But if you take wormwood like you're supposed to, and you keep it in smaller amounts, which everyone should because it's very, very bitter, then you won't have to worry about anything. I'm sure some of y'all are probably like, why are you mentioning this if we're talking about herbal medicine? Well, I have to cover my own ass. I'm trying to help y'all in doing herbal medication, herbal medicines for yourselves, and I really don't want you going above and beyond hardcore into taking something because, hey, it's got, it's been used in absinthe, that if I use too much of it, I could maybe get some of the effects because you're just one of those weird thrill chasers. No. I want to make sure that I mention clearly on this video that I'm not a doctor, I'm not your doctor, I'm just some random guy on YouTube, and I'm using this video for entertainment purposes only. So when I'm talking about taking this stuff personally, that means, yes, I'm only taking it myself, all right? I'm not trying to tell you guys to do anything. This is just me taking something that I found that works for me, and if you want to emulate that, you're an adult and you can do whatever you want. So with all that being said, let's move on. All right, so number one, what exactly is it? Well, wormwood is a shrubby perennial plant that is native to North Africa and Eurasia. It grows between about 2 to 5 feet tall with about a 3-foot spread, and it grows very well between zones 4 through 8. So number two, where can I find it and how do I identify it? Well, where you can find it is going to be tricky because, yes, remember how I said it's native to North Africa and Eurasia? Well, we've been using it so long as medicine that it has basically become naturalized in North America, Canada, and the United States. It doesn't really grow very well in the South, like Mexico thing, because it's just too hot. But it's one of those plants that has been naturalized here. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. I have been hiking miles and miles and miles through my hunts and through my forages to pick up as many wild plants, mushrooms, and obviously hunting animals as I can, and I have never run across wild wormwood. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but here in my state of South Carolina, I have never personally come across it. So when it came down to actually being able to find it and use it, I had to source the seeds from somewhere else and grow it myself. I was able to find my seeds from Strictly Medicinal Seeds right here. I bought them last winter, and I put them down first thing in the spring. The plant is a very beautiful plant, and it grows pretty fast, surprisingly. You just gotta make sure whenever you're putting it down that you actually give it the seeds light. You can't bury them. You have to keep them scattered on the surface because it needs light to germinate. So just keep that part in mind if you want to grow these yourself. And I gotta make sure that I mention, whenever you are putting this plant somewhere, you want to put it in an area with like sandy soil, something that drains very well because it does not like wet feet. Now, as for how to identify it, let me go over and show you what exactly it looks like. Okay, so this is wormwood. If you pay attention to the leaves, they have a very peculiar shape. Almost looks like what you find on celery, but it doesn't grow like with celery. So whenever you see these kind of leaves in a silvery green color, you're most likely looking at wormwood. It likes to grow from a central. This is only one plant. I know it looks like multiple plants, but it's just one plant, and that's how big it grows. It kind of sprawls to the side. Now, everybody's favorite part, what are the medicinal benefits of this plant? With the name wormwood, what do you think it probably helps you get rid of? Worms. And then I'm talking about intestinal worms, but it also works topically for things like ringworm. But the intestinal worms it really goes after are roundworm and threadworm. Not just an anti-parasitic, Wormwood is extremely bitter, and anything that is bitter is going to help your liver because it's going to make your gallbladder produce more bile. More bile is going to help speed up and move along anything that's been sluggish in your digestive system. Now, one of the big ones that I want to make sure I mention is if you are suffering from things like small intestine bacterial overgrowth or GERD symptoms, maybe having something like leaky gut, a lot of issues digesting, if you take wormwood, trust me, it's going to help calm down a lot of that inflammation because, like I said, when that bile moves through, it's really going to carry a lot of bad things with it, and I'm also including things like candida. All right, candida overgrowth is one of the things that's actually been creeping up a lot lately, and since it stimulates your digestive process, this will help your digestive problems immensely. But because of this, you're going to watch out how and when you take it because some people react differently to this. For me personally, I can tell you point blank, when you take this as a tea or even a tincture, it helps move things along in your digestive system to where you don't really want to be out shopping that day. All right, I'm just gonna put it that way. You wanna make sure you're taking this when you are at home for the rest of the day. I wanna make sure that I mention you can also use this plant topically, all right? Remember how I said earlier you can use it for things like ringworm? You can also use it for things like bruising, all right? It moves things along and it helps against inflammation. So if you make something like a liniment, which is using this soaked in rubbing alcohol, then you are gonna be able to use that topically to be able to put things on small cuts, on things like bruises, sprains, stuff like that to help things move along. And finally, one more thing I gotta make sure that I mention is if you are pregnant, breastfeeding, or have issues with your gallbladder, like having gallstones, please don't take this stuff. The last thing you're gonna wanna need is to produce more bile from your gallbladder if you're already producing gallstones. And if you're pregnant and breastfeeding, trust me, you can't take a lot of other things anyway, so this isn't a big deal. Just keep that part in mind. And finally, number 4, what is the practical application? I'm going to go over a few ways that you can use this plant to benefit you in the ways I mentioned previously. But first things first, if you want to use this medicinally, especially internally, my suggestion is to take some of this and to clip it off and go ahead and start hanging it to dry now because it's going to need a couple days to dry out so you can actually use it. Okay, so quickly, whenever you're harvesting, you just want to go ahead and cut down these stems. You're using all the aerial parts and you're going to tie them together. You don't really want to use this stuff fresh, so you want to make sure you hang it together to dry. All I do is I cut them, I tie them, and I basically hang them in my kitchen from the top right here with a little tack, and I just let them dry for about 2 weeks. All right, so in order to use this, first you're going to get a pair of shears, and then you're going to get your dried wormwood. Then you're going to take that, and the first thing we're going to use is a infusion, which is basically a glorified tea. You're going to get yourself one of these little tea balls right here. That way you can put the dried wormwood inside it. You're going to cut off a piece and then stuff it. So you make sure that it is completely closed, because yes, I have problems with this thing closing sometimes. It's a pain in the butt. But you can pick one of these up for like $3. And then all you're going to do is put it into your favorite mug. Obviously, I'm a big comic book geek, so I have a Marvel mug. And you are going to essentially make a tea. You're going to put hot water in there and let it steep for about 5 to 10 minutes. After 5 to 10 minutes, you can go ahead and drink it. Trust me, this is going to be bitter, so you're going to want to add honey and lemon juice. All right, so now we are going to make a tincture. Now we're going to get 100 proof, 50% alcohol by volume vodka. This is Burnett's. It's one of the only ones I can find that's 50%. You're going to get a scale and 2 jars, all right? One of the jars is going to be taller than the other one because you're going to be using it to stuff all of that dried wormwood. So you're basically going to be cutting all of it up, and we're going to see if we can get any significant amount, all right? I was going for a goal of about 25 to 30 grams. Because that's basically all you're going to get out of this because being dry is so light. When you get your final amount, you are going to take that in a 1:4 ratio. So now we got 30 grams of this. So a 1:4 ratio of wormwood to alcohol, we're going to need 120 grams of alcohol. Once you get to 120 grams, all you do is you just take them and pour it right over the top. When you get it poured over top, you're going to want to cap it off and label it as the date because this thing's going to have to mix for about 4 to 6 weeks. Today's date is November 10th. Happy birthday, Marines. Hoorah. And then after about 4 or 6 weeks, we are going to strain it and put it in these little tincture bottles. These little tincture bottles have a dropper because that's how you're going to want to take it. 1 to 10 drops is all you're really going to need. If anything more than that, you're going to have digestive problems. So yeah. Now, finally, the third way we're going to be using this wormwood is we're going to make a liniment. A liniment is basically an external use tincture, okay? So all we're going to be doing is the same thing we do with a tincture, except we're going to be using rubbing alcohol instead of drinking alcohol. Since we're doing that and it's not going to be used internally, I don't really measure or weigh anything. I just kind of cover everything up and then stash away between 2 and 4 weeks. After 2 to 4 weeks, we are going to strain it out and we're going to put it back into another jar. And if you have a problem on the skin, say you got a bruise, some swelling, you need to add, maybe like an achy joint, you're just going to use it topically, put it on top of there, and it's going to help bring blood flow to that area. Now, for those of y'all who are curious in some of the references I used for this video, I'm going to go ahead and mention these two right here, the Herbal Apothecary by Dr. J.J. Purcell and the Herbal Medic Green Beret's Guide 2, Emergency Medical Preparedness and Natural First Aid by Sam Kaufman. Both these books have been extremely helpful, especially when talking about wormwood, because there's a lot of herbal medication or herbal medicine books out there that seem to leave wormwood out because it is mildly toxic, and these two talk about it extensively. Alright, so I think I'm going to wrap this video up. It is starting to rain, so I want to make sure I can go ahead and get inside and start the editing process. Hopefully this video was one of those ones that you didn't even know you needed and you learned a lot, because I can tell you point blank from somebody who has suffered for many years of GERD and other digestive issues, this plant has been a godsend to me. It has definitely changed a whole bunch of stuff for me, and I very much wanted to bring that to my viewer because I have not heard anyone talk about wormwood. So hopefully by bringing it to this channel, it enlightens you, at least gets you to the point where you want to do some more research. I'll go ahead and put down below a few more resources so you can go ahead and check them out if you would like. But if you learned anything at all, please do me a humongous favor and give this video a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel if you are not, and I'll catch y'all later, okay? Bye.